the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
It even told me you were recording. Wow.
Yeah.
Fancy.
That's how they get you.
Holy moly, y'all. We've got someone on the podcast today who went to UMHB for like a whole year. But he made his mark in that 1 year. Seth Prochaska, how are you doing?
What's up, buddy? Long time no see.
I was joking with Tyler.
Right? When I was so surprised. Like, Garrett was like, "Hey, I'm by your house getting burgers with Seth."
Yeah,
that was weird.
Dude, it was so funny because my dad was like, "Doesn't one of your buddies live here?" I'm like, "Yeah, which one?" Yes, it's funny. I told Tyler, like, isn't just Purple, Gold, and Getting Old? It's like Maroon, White, and Farmers Fight at the same time, because this is the first guest on this podcast where I went to college with them twice. Like that, I've not been able to say that about anyone else on this podcast.
Twice at two different schools,
and we didn't get kicked out of either one. Sort of.
Yeah, that's weird.
Impressive.
I mean, it's still debatable with UMHB. I'm pretty sure, like, it would have been like the next semester. It probably would have been over.
We left before we were kindly asked to.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I'll just jump right into this thing. You know, we usually talk about how we met our guests, but I kind of want to talk about how you got there. Because you went to several different schools and played several sports.
Yeah.
And like if conference realignment could have the Seth conference if it wanted to.
Oh, crap. It could.
You went to Centenary College before you went to UMHB.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, because I'm usually good at remembering obscure details, but I don't remember what took you from Vanderbilt, Texas to Centenary. Was it soccer? What was it? Take us through it.
So coming out of high school, I got offered to play. I was a full ride scholarship soccer player coming out of high school. Centenary was the only school that gave me a full ride. So that's why I ended up going there, because I was cheap and I didn't want to pay for school. So I figured full ride scholarship, cool. Went there with a preseason all conference pick. And then I ended up like blowing up my right knee, like second game of the year against Bowling Green at Central Arkansas, and like wherever.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's a purple school.
Yeah.
It was like
their
up
football
there.
field's purple too.
Yeah. At that school, I blew my knee up at that school, and then they flew me back home, back to Shreveport, Louisiana. And then I went into surgery like the next day, went into therapy the next day, and the coaches were like, "Oh, we're gonna have you back for spring." I was like, so I'm out, and just chunk deuce, and I was out of there like in December. So I stayed there for a whole 6 months, and then
you were in KA there too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at KA there for the 6 months that I was there.
I just remember being at the Thunderdome at your next school, and you were like, "Hey, we're gonna do this thing called Thunderstruck." I'm like, "What's that?" And we learned.
Oh yes, yeah, that was crazy times. Don't do that.
Nope, don't do that, kids.
No, bad.
So on the last episode, I think that was, we had Brett Myers on, and he was talking about how he found UMHB just by driving by it. And I couldn't remember, but I thought you had something similar, or I couldn't remember. I think was it Rocky recruited you, or
Rocky. Okay. Rocky, he was a DB at UMHB, and one day he was from Edna, which is the rival of Industrial, which is where I went to school. And we were just playing like flag football one day, and he was like, "Dude, you should go and play football." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Where do you play at?" And he was like, "Oh, I play at UMHB." Never had been to the school, didn't know where Belton was. I was like, sure. Went home, applied, got accepted like the next day, and I was like, I guess I'm playing college football tomorrow. Okay, cool.
Okay, which one? So there was Edna and there was Inez. Was that the one you went to, or Industrial?
Industrial is in Vanderbilt. They're all little, I mean, Edna and Industrial added together didn't have as many as like the freshman class at UMHB. So
I just remember, like, it was weird because before you went to UMHB, I knew a guy named Luke LeBeff, and I remember when we put that together, I was like, yeah, that dude's from out there. Like everyone knew each other. Yeah,
it's super small.
So was there never any thought of going back and playing soccer somewhere else?
Actually, so when I left UMHB, the next semester after I left UMHB, I played NAIA Division I college soccer at University of Houston Victoria. Like literally,
I remember that. That's right.
Walked off the football field right back onto the soccer field and started at another school in another sport. Like, yeah. And then I walked onto the baseball team there too. So
that's right. I forgot.
I played 3 collegiate sports at 4 different schools. Yeah. Don't ask me.
Did the tour to Texas universities.
Oh, dude, like I used every single second of my college NCAA eligibility. Used all of it. There's none left.
Dude, I remember when you went up to Lubbock and were kicking practice field goals at Jones or whatever, you texted me and you were like, you weren't lying. It's windy as hell out here.
Dude, that was crazy. So like, I don't even remember where that was. That was before I went to A&M. So that would have been after I played a season of college soccer at University of Houston, Victoria. The next semester, I got recruited to be a field goal kicker again at Tech. And then I like committed. I went up there, dude. It was the weirdest string of events. Like I literally I applied online and then I called the admissions office the next day at Texas Tech. And I was like, hey guys, my name's Seth. I'm like a potential football player. I was just wondering like if y'all had gotten my admissions stuff. And they were like, oh yeah, we're looking at it right here. Are you going to come to school? And I was like, I guess. They literally were like, okay, cool, you're accepted. And just like click the button online, didn't go over anything. I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm in? And they're like, yeah, you can show up tomorrow and you're good. And I was like, that was really easy to get into the school.
It's so weird. Like I remember, I think that was the year after the kicker they had was so bad that Mike Leach was like, anyone from the stand, like they pulled an
that was that year.
yeah.
They pulled like that random kid out of the stands at halftime and like he kicked a field goal to win like $100 or whatever. And they just like gave him a helmet and a uniform. I was like, you're now the kicker. Yeah. Yeah, it was like that next season.
I remember that summer I was working back in the Panhandle, and this guy, he knew I was a big Aggie guy. He came in, he's like, "Hey, we actually used our 12th man." I'm like, "Shut up." Yeah. So while you're at UMHB, because it was a brief stint, I don't want to hammer that one home too much, but the way I remember meeting you, because we always talk about how we met everybody, is we met, and then I met you again, but didn't put the two together till later. It was the Fellowship of Christian Athletes cookout. We were supposed to be standing with the Couch Crew captains in a pod, and we'd all just had a big argument. Like we were all just kind of like fake smiling and all that. And so Andy and I were like, screw that. Like, let's just go meet everybody. We want to meet the football team. So we went and we sat down at one table. It was like you and a couple freshmen. And one of them asked something about what we do at games. And we talked about a couple of things we did to heckle the other team. And you were like, dude, I'm hanging out with these guys this year. And that's that. And I remember Andy and I were like, that dude's never going to hang out with us. Like, what? And so then we go, like, the first game rolls around and we're up in Bethany, Oklahoma, outside of Oklahoma City, a rainy night. Dude, and we were getting in trouble. Sucked. It was bad.
That was terrible. I remember I missed like a 15-yard field goal that night because I slipped in the mud and like fell down. It was a terrible game.
It was so cold and wet, and we were all in a bad mood in the stands because of just a bunch of crap going on. So every time I got in trouble for yelling something that was like mean, it never failed. There was one football player who kept turning around going like, yes, that's it. And I asked Andy, I'm like, look up this dude's number on the roster. He looks familiar. And Andy's like looking through it, and he finally, and because Andy, he'd look anything up, and he'd turn around, he's like, somebody named Seth Prochaska, I think. And I was like, I don't think I recognize it. And so about a week later, I'm in my room doing homework in my apartment, and I hear a bunch of yelling in my living room. And one of the guys that lived there, I won't get into what the argument was, but he said something inaccurate, and somebody was putting him in his place. And I found it really entertaining. So I get up and I walk in my living room, and there is Seth Prochaska yelling at this dude, telling him what is up. And I'm like, I like this guy. So that's kind of how for me it started. Tyler, I don't remember when y'all met.
Well, you and Andy told me about Seth. Like, you have to meet this guy. He's wild. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And then you like pointed me out. I guess I don't know. This might have been after the Oklahoma game, but anyway. So you've been telling me about Seth a little bit. And so I come over one day and I open the apartment door, and you might have to edit this out. But Seth is sitting right beside the door, and just, as I'm walking in, goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a in my house for the first words. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. It's just not your typical UMHB guy. Got it, understood. So
I never signed that paperwork at UMHB, by the way.
Yeah, well, and so you didn't come to UMHB because of their Bible studies.
Dude, those classes were so hard.
They were.
God,
I made a see it all the time.
classes were
What was your
impossible.
impression of UMHB like when you first got there? Just like the whole culture that's very interesting.
It was crazy, but I mean, I don't know. I didn't really interact with very many people outside of like the football team because all we did was play and practice and like go to class, and then you'd go home and you'd study, and then we'd go back to football. Like being an athlete in college is a completely different world because you never get to do anything. Like that's your job. Your only job is to go to play sports, and then if you don't pass your class, you can't play. So it's like you're not really worth anything. So it was really cool because at UMHB, I got to see both sides of it within the same year because like at the end of the season, I ended up walking away from the team and then do like the student side of it too. So I got to see both parts of it, which was really cool because like my entire time in college, even when I was at A&M, I only had one, maybe 2 semesters at A&M when I wasn't affiliated with something where I was constantly like at a job. So like my first 2 years in college were all sports. And then my last like 2 years in college were all sports. And then like my one semester at UMHB was the only semester I had where it wasn't like me actually playing something where it was like class, study, practice. Oh, you're going to be gone for a weekend because now we have a game in BFE random state and we don't have enough money to fly. So we're going to drive a bus for 36 hours. Like, yeah, it was that.
Dude, I remember, and I'll get to the A&M stuff in a minute, but I remember like you went hard athletically when we were at A&M. And so it really took a lot of time. But I remember we were like halfway through the semester and we were talking about some building on campus and you were like, I don't have a clue what y'all are talking about. And we were like, you haven't been to whatever building? You were like, dude, I go to football, I go to presser, and that's it. And I remember we're taking a tour. And so we did a tour and it's like, we're showing him the other 5 buildings that exist at the school, which
that was before UMHB had like nice stuff. And
dude, it's like living here now. It's insane. Like you drive into it, like when you're at the quad, it looks like it did when we were there.
Right.
But you drive one building away any direction and it's like, wow, somebody took a piece of Baylor and slapped it in Belton.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty cool to look at.
Short time, but in your short time there, was there any like certain tradition or thing about UMHB that just sticks out to you as special that you enjoyed?
I really enjoyed pissing off that one guy. What was his name?
Which one?
I know his name, Horny Toad.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. He's been
a
subject of conversation on this pod and on Twitter lately.
Yes, I like taking
I promise we're not planning it. It's just kind of happening.
It's like Star Wars.
I don't think that's a tradition.
Yeah, it is.
Should be.
No, it is.
Because we did it all the time. It was so much fun.
On like a week or two ago on Twitter, I was moaning and groaning about how few people were at the NCAA basketball playoff game. I'm like,
right.
This is like you have a good team, support your team. And there was some like student who had some like the Mayborn Madness or something, some basic.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we wanted to be better, but some guy told us we couldn't stand up and yell like we had been all year. And I was like, does his name rhyme with, and you can bleep this out, Schmandy Schman? And he was like, yes. I'm like, yes. 15 years later, nothing has changed.
I'm not bleeping it.
Nah, that was seriously fun though. Like
I count that as a tradition.
Was almost as much as fun as heckling the other teams.
Yeah, I could see that.
Was there anything like you wish you could have been a part of before you left? Because like running with our group, we did a lot. Like it's kind of hard to.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think the only thing from UMHB that I didn't get that I wanted was my freaking like national semifinals ring from like winning conference and all that. I didn't get one because I ended my season before the last game of the season. So I wasn't considered part of the team. So that was the only ring that I didn't get, and kind of ticked me off. I was like, I did something. Like
I scored some points.
yeah, I was like, I scored some. I have an NCAA points. Like, I feel like that's kind of cool, but it's all good. I don't hold any hard feelings against them.
I didn't have this on the rundown, but you were also good. You were good at intramurals too, because I remember we would go and we would watch, because by this point our group had started to get together. And so we would go watch Hannah and Rachel play soccer. And I remember when they had to play Crudo, and it was bad enough that they're going to have to play Crudo. But I remember Juan and Allie and them were like, hey, we found a new player. We're like, who? And you come running out. You're like, hey, I'm on their team tonight.
No, we got to rewind. We got to rewind a little bit. I had been introduced to soccer a year or two earlier by a girlfriend. And so, we weren't dating anymore, but I had just like kept on playing on this intramural team we formed. I'm like, this is great. But we sucked. We were terrible. And I meet Seth, and Seth doesn't know many other people on campus. So I'm like, guys, I've got a ringer. And I'm not letting Seth know. I'm trying not to let him know that we are just absolute trash. My whole plan is just like, put him on the field, like, go, Seth, do something. But Seth, secret gets out. Seth kind of figures it out. Maybe you know, remember, I don't know. But you end up telling me that last day that you could, you're like, hey man, I'm sorry. I'm going to Crudo. I was like, man, you're taking your talents to Crudo, down to like LeBron down to South Beach. I can't believe it. And I was like so ready to take you on in the game we played, knowing we were gonna lose. And I got myself so hyped up, man. I was the keeper. And I just remember I got like hands on multiple of your balls that you kicked in, but like it was just like so much power, like so much beyond anybody else that I played all year on the intramural fields, that I was just like, I don't know what to do with that. I got two solid hands on that, guys, and my hands just like bent back. So sorry.
Well, there was also the Kane Taylor brainchild of Reggie's kids, where people took line drive softballs to the face, and
yeah, dude, that was I remember that. I also remember that death hole you had outside of your apartment. You remember that?
Yeah.
So Rachel many people ate it.
Yeah.
Starlight pit.
The Starlight pit. Rachel had a scar like that long on her leg.
Yeah. I remember that when she fell in it, like straight down. No, that was terrible.
I forgot about that. I drive past there on that road every now and then. And one of these days, I'm just going to park, get out, and be like, did y'all fix this yet?
Nope.
All right. Before leaving Belton, though, you lived in the Thunderdome. I think some memories were made. Is there a memory of living there that sticks out to you? Even if it's spectacularly good or bad.
Oh, yeah. I do remember. What was that one? Oh, what was that one girl's name? The one, the cone. You remember that? Traffic cone? That's probably the best. That was probably the best, funniest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. They just like took that traffic cone and threw it down the hall. Great.
Oh man,
fantastic one-liner.
She will drive from kill me if we tell that one.
So let's not do that.
You had to be there, guys. It was great.
That one was hilarious.
Yeah. I just remember you and Kane would just give each other all sorts of grief from across the hall on Facebook when you were literally like 10 feet away from each other with the doors closed.
Yeah, all the time.
So that does bring one question I had, is like, so our group, we've interviewed like the guys on this podcast, but we haven't interviewed the girls, and they'll probably get anxiety if I even start calling them if they want to be on the podcast. But you were always admirably protective of all of them, and it's something we all kind of try to make an effort to be too. And so like, I would have to say, what was that trait about you? Because it always seemed like an instinct. It was never like, hey, watch this, I'm gonna look out for the girls in a group. But if anyone was in a bind, you immediately you had it. Like, where does that come from?
I mean, that's just small town Texas. Like, well, like my school had like 12, maybe like 30 people in it. We knew everybody. We all watched out for our own. Like, you would go to random games for sports you didn't play, and it was like, well, there's 30 of us and there's 30 of them. We're gonna win. Like, you don't want to get in a fight with us, man. That's dumb. Kind of the same thing. Like, when you find your group of people, like, y'all are my group of people. Like, it had nothing to do with who it was or what situation they were in, but like, hey, these are the people that I'm going to be around the most. I'm going to take care of them. I mean, that's just kind of a trait that's followed me everywhere. I mean, it's still true here. Like, the people at our gym, like, I don't have any affiliation with them outside of the gym. I don't hang out with nobody. You know, that video that's like, I don't hang out with nobody. I go home and I don't go outside, and I don't hang out with nobody. That's me. Like, no one. But if we go to like a CrossFit competition and somebody's trying to give one of our people flack, like, I'm the first person to like get in the middle and be like, oh, hell no. If you want to talk to me, come talk to me. Like, yeah. So
well, it's funny. And another thing we'll get to later is law enforcement. But, you know, whenever you've had job reference calls, just now I'll get a phone call, which, by the way, folks, the first one I ever got, I forgot it was coming. So I'm at work in Houston one day. I get a call. It's like, this is so-and-so from the sheriff's office in his county. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you know Seth Prochaska? I'm like,
oh God,
what did we do?
No, it's good. It's good.
The dude was so serious too. And he was just like, you're a reference. I'm like, oh, thank God, you know, but it was always cool. Cause like one thing I've said in like every reference call is they were like, does he have a temper? I'm like, well, no, he doesn't have a temper. And it's like, have you seen him, you know, get in a fight? I said, no, I said, anytime I've seen him get defensive, it's never for his own behalf. It's always to look out for someone else, which to me is what you want in a law enforcement person. And one example I had of that was we were at Concordia at a basketball game, and their fans were just giving it to us, you know, and we're leaving. And one of them said something I'll not repeat at Seth. And Seth was the last one walking out the door. And I heard it. And I'm like, it's about to go down. And like, I turn around. Seth's just laughing it off like, y'all ain't going to do anything, and walks out. I'm like, oh, good. But I was thinking about it later. I'm like, dude, if those people had been doing it to me or Andy or anyone in the group, Seth would have been pile driving them. You know?
Yeah, like, of course. Of course. Yeah. It takes a lot to tick me off.
And that's the thing. Like, I would almost say it's almost like a misconception because we were all so high energy. I think people thought we were mad all the time. Like, no, dude, we're just high energy. But the only other question I have on that is, you know, like, I've never considered you a loner. I've considered you a maverick. I mean, like, you do your thing, you go to the beat of your own drum, you live by your code, and you keep a circle around you that's fairly small wherever you are. Yeah. And so what was it that drew you to the Tuck guys? Because, like, you know, to this day, it's like, y'all, Seth hates group texts, so we don't spam him with a bunch of group texts. But like, there's a group text that has a bunch of those guys in it, and every now and then I'll be like, "That's hilarious." I'm sending it to Seth. You know, it's like, there's still that line of, you know, like when you're not around, you're still there in spirit. So like, what was it about us that brought you in?
I think it was just the ability to not feel like, I never felt like I was judged for anything other than like who I was. Like, everybody took me at face value, which is what I would want from everybody, is like, I'm exactly who I am. I'm crude and pretty rude sometimes, but I'm very, very loyal. And like, it's one of those things, like, I'll say things exactly how they are, and I'm very blunt, and I don't really care if you like me or not. And everybody in that group was the same way. Like, everybody took me for that. They were like, wow, that was really up, dude. Like, why'd you say that? And be like, but okay, yeah, you're good, man. Like, that meant more to me than like fake friends or like the whole, oh yeah, man, I got you back. And then there was nothing behind it.
Yeah. That's true.
I, you know, something I always kind of just found, like, that's what I liked about you, is that you did not care what the people were off. Like, it's like, this is great. And I was a Christian. And so, like, I think certain people who kind of like had interactions with you on UMHB were like, why do you hang out with that guy? Like, because he's awesome and he's real. Like, y'all are kind of fake. So, you know? Like, maybe so you should get to know somebody before you know, outward, like, whatever.
Yeah, I think I can echo. I think that's what drew me to all the other guys in that group too, is because there was a lot of plastic on that campus. There was a lot of fake, and there was a lot of real. I mean, there were a lot of good people there too. I just, you know, I don't want to act like it was all that way, but in our group, you knew you were, even if people didn't agree, you knew you were getting their honest opinion. And we were, and you mentioned the loyalty thing. You know, on the last episode, we had Brett Myers on here. And I told Brett, I said, you and Seth probably had the most opposite personalities of any two guys in that thing. Yes. But if either of you called the other one right now and said, hey, I'm 50 miles away and I've got a flat tire, either one of you would be at the other one. And then you'd probably drop them. I'm all right. No,
like, wow, that was dumb. You probably shouldn't do that again. Get out of here.
That's where I'm different, man. Like, I'll tell you I love you, and I do, I guess. But like, if you call me, you're 50 miles away with, I'm like, hey man, I'll send you the number for AAA.
Literally, Tyler and I live in the same county, and I haven't seen him since the time that we met at Fry High. Like,
I
think I actually saw you at the gas station on 46 one day.
Probably.
I keep waiting on you to pull him over.
Well, yeah, you might have. I go there sometimes. Yeah, because that's on the way to work.
Yeah. I'm like 100%.
I'm like you. I don't get out and do much. Because I'm very much an introvert, but for my job as a pastor, I have to be very extroverted a lot. And by the time I'm done with that, I really don't want to hang out with people.
That's me.
Dude. That's 100%. Like,
the only social thing I do is I go surfing on the lake with a buddy, and like, that's about it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll go down to the coast and play my annual spring break show concert. And I'm like, I can still be awesome. I had people guessing my age on the beach, and it ranged from like 19 to 30. And I'm like, I feel pretty good right now. And then I get home, I'm like, I'm 85. Like, I can't.
I'm so tired.
But yeah, the only other question I think we had about UMHB, and then we'll move on to the post Belton athlete years, is what was like the final straw on you leaving? Because you and I both, and the other guys too, there a lot of guys except you and I were in a position where we could leave, was that we had a lot of frustrations through various things at the school. And it's like, not to say that we didn't like the school or this, that, the other. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be heard the wrong way. I'm on a podcast about underground stories, but like, what was your big thing with leaving the school? Because I remember it was like we were kind of fed up at that point.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, fed up with the school. I had dealings with the administration where I was like, I'm not here for anything. I came here to play football. After I left the football team, I was like, well, there's not really anything for me to do here now. And then I got an offer from University of Houston, Victoria. It was like their inaugural soccer team. They're like the first time they'd ever had a college soccer team. And right. I got a call out of nowhere that was like, hey, you used to be a Division I goalkeeper, right? Do you want to come and play? And I was like, sure, yeah. And kind of the same thing as like every other school, signed up online, got accepted, went down there, walked onto the team, and was like, oh, cool, look, playing sports again. So
this is how we were in college, folks. I'm helping Seth edit his highlight video. Instead of just putting highlights, it was, hey, I knocked that dude on the ground. Let's put that in there. We're like, all right, let's put in the clip where you look down at him once you walk over him. Like, we're putting in like half the video's highlights and half of it's just trash talk.
Yep.
But I remember I think we were at Bush's when they called you, or you had just gotten the call and you were like, dude, I'm going to go be on the first team here.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty cool.
You go to Victoria, and not only did you play soccer there at UHV, but you played, was it like the Texans affiliate or something? There was like a football team you were on. What was that?
I played semi-pro football. Yeah. like the next semester or something like that. Like in the spring, I played like the semi-pro football. I played as a running back, which was cool.
Nice.
But like just random position change, did something completely different, had scored a couple of touchdowns. It was pretty cool. I was like, I can do other things.
I remember that because at first I thought you were a kicker, and I was like, wait, what's he doing? He's like in the huddle. He's going around the
Yeah.
But Seth never had the spirit of a kicker. He might have come from soccer, but he was always ready to hit somebody.
Oh yeah.
I remember once, I don't know if it was like on a kickoff or something. You were just like, dude, I lit this guy up, and it was just that was.
I feel bad for that guy, kind of. He was totally.
I bet you did.
He was totally faced the wrong direction. His dude caught the ball, and he turned around. I was like 2 feet from him, just smeared him all over the ground. Everybody was like, "That was a kicker!" Holy.
So was it? So there goes that voice. Each school has a different scenario. You're working on different things. You're pursuing different things. Was it easier or harder to find the drive to get back into soccer and play football once you were gone from Belton, or was it easier before? Because at that point, I think you're probably like your third school. So did you enjoy it more?
Like fifth. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was just, I think probably the hardest part of doing all the transferring, follow sports, because that's essentially what I was doing. Is I was trying to make it in whatever sport I could. But I think the hardest thing was like taking all my mixed match credits from every school and like adding them together to make a degree. Cause it was like, I'll get to a school and be like, what do you have to offer as far as academics? And they'd be like, well, these are the degrees. And I'm like,
here's my New Testament survey class from
exactly, dude. Oh my God, at A&M, they were like trying to figure out where to put like New Testament and Old Testament. They were like, they're theology classes, right? Can we use this? And they were like, well, we can put it here. Wait, no, it doesn't belong in sciences. And they were like, oh, dude, it took forever.
I've heard of people trying to do that.
Transferred to Tennessee until my future wife Emily was like, "You're not leaving Texas," and because I was sick of paying for UMHB tuition, and I was just going to be a totally different degree. I'm like, "What can you do with all this theology?"
Yes,
and the school was like, "Listen, we'll have you, but to be honest, almost nothing transfers in, so you might as well just come in as a freshman and start over again." I'm like, oh.
Yeah. It's true.
So Tyler's dipped out for a second, but he'll be right back. So I'm trying to remember. I've got a little bit of a fuzzy gap in my head from when you were at UH Victoria to when you ended up at A&M, because I know you did a lot of heavy training, I think, back at home, if I remember right. And then when did CrossFit enter the picture? Was that at that same time, or did it kind of blend in?
It definitely blended in because I started that like, I guess that would have been like 2008 when I like went to play college soccer. I started that in the summer to try and get in shape, which didn't work because I went to school totally out of shape. And then like stopped while we were at UMHB, and then kind of picked back up at UHV. And then when I went to A&M, then I started coaching and like training like really, really hard. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to try and walk on to the football team at A&M. Woo. And then I started training like a freaking madman, and then found out that I absolutely loved it. And I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this because it's just as fun as college sports. And I don't have to rely on people. It's either I'm good or I'm not. And it's like I didn't have to worry about like 17 other people being decent at what they're supposed to do. So I was like, oh well, if I lose, it's my own fault. So that's
that's why I always hated team sports. I was always doing individual sports. I struggled with that.
I hated team discipline. One person messed up on a random Friday night 3 months ago, and you're punishing me because he's an idiot. No, ain't working.
I was going to ask you, you answered the question already, though. I was curious really what gets you into CrossFit, if you just wanted to do it for its own sake, or if it was more of a means to an end for the other sports. So you did it for other sports, but then you just fell in love with it.
Yeah, it was a means to an end to like, I was like, well, how can I get really strong and really conditioned? And I was like, oh, look, CrossFit just was a random thing that came up. And I was like, we'll try that. And then
I distinctly remember as you really get into that, I'm in my mid-20s at that point, probably.
Yeah.
And I've quit sports, and like my physique is and you're actually like, you're getting in better shape.
Oh yeah.
And I need to clear something up for our listeners. When Seth says out of shape, there's two out of shape. There's normal us out of shape, and then there's Seth Prochaska out of shape. Seth in college, like at UMHB, compared to what he looks like now, you'd say, wow, he was out of shape compared to that. But compared to the rest of us, he was still the most in shape dude by a mile. And like, I remember Seth comes to the Thunderdome one day and he's like, all right, y'all, get ready for next Tuesday. We're like, what's next Tuesday? And he's like, that's when we're starting P90X. I've got the calendar on the wall. I got the DVDs already in the mail. And we're like, what the heck is this? And Seth put us through boot camp in his living room, like every day. And
every day.
Every one guy would drop out every like other week. And like, it got down to where it was just you, me, and Nathan. I think we're the last three.
Yep.
And if I hadn't injured my wrist being an idiot, I would have gone which years later, last year, I finally made it. I ordered it and I was like, I'm going to finish what I said. So I did it. But yeah, Nathan was the only other guy, I think, at first. Andy, to his credit, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, he ordered and he was like, I'm going to finish what we started. So that all came from Seth and him busting us to bust ours.
That's awesome.
I remember
I was just jumping randomly because I'd get bored. I'm like, all right, where are we at? I'm just like, wherever y'all were at in the program. I'm like,
yep. we're doing this day.
Yeah.
But you've stayed in shape and like not just in shape, but I mean like you've stayed competitive. And so like when you started CrossFit, I think it was about the time we both finally ended up at A&M. And like, did you jump in and immediately get competitive with it, or did it start off as something that was just for your physical health?
No, I went in. I would say probably like the first, like when you first got started, or when I first got started, it was like, oh, cool, like this is really fun. I'm using this to get better at sports. Awesome. And then they were like, hey, by the way, you're pretty strong and you move pretty well. There's this thing called the CrossFit Games. You might be interested. And I was like, wait, you're telling me there's a leaderboard for everybody across the world and I can beat like thousands of people? Sold. And then we started doing that. And I guess like my first CrossFit Open was 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012. And I've done it every year since. And like, just was like, oh, this is great. This is the best thing that's ever made.
Dude, I remember when you got me to show up one time because I like later on I did CrossFit for a little while, but I broke the rule. Like the first rule of CrossFit is tell everyone you do CrossFit, but I like didn't tell anyone because I thought it'd be hilarious to say I don't do any kind of workout. So what I started doing is I started getting like in really good shape. What do you do? I'm like, nothing. I was just like, I'd lie.
Hang out.
But I remember in College Station, I forgot the name of the box. That was just CrossFit Aggieland or something. It was that one on like Rock Prairie and Boomfit, yeah. So I show up and something came up and you're like, hey, I gotta go take care of something. But Coach so-and-so was the bald guy. I think he was like a cyclist or something. He was like, he was leading it that day.
Yeah.
And the first thing he says, he gathers everyone in. He's like, all right, we got a visitor today. That's fine. We're gonna go through the competition run. I'm like, what the heck? And so they did like a competition WOD. And I'm like, is there a beginner WOD? They're like, no, everyone just does the same thing. Dude, I could not lift my hands up to the steering wheel of my truck afterwards. So I'm driving underhanded on my wheel. I see Seth like 2 days later. I'm like, I'd kill you if I could move my arms, but I can't.
That's awesome.
So bad. But yeah, like, so A&M, like that was one thing, like you and I both had that in common from the day we met was, we're at UMHB, but someday we're getting the Aggie ring like that, whether it's grad school or undergrad, whatever, we're getting it. Yes. And like you still had a chance to get it for undergrad. And I was in that it's either grad school or bust because I'm, I'm already senior. So what did it mean to you to finally get that letter, get over there, go where your folks went, like get to the family school?
It was that in itself is a pretty crazy situation. So it was after Texas Tech, after I'd already committed to play football there. I ended up walking away, going back home, going back to Victoria College, which is the junior college there, for a semester just to get credit so I didn't have like a lapse in school. I had applied for A&M 4 semesters in a row. I had like a 3.8, a 3.9, a 3.9, and a 4.0, like the 4 semesters going into submitting into A&M, and I never got accepted. Like I would submit it, didn't get accepted, submit it, didn't get accepted. And I was like, I'm a legacy. I was like, how is this even happening? I had actually, and you can call my mom and ask her, you can like dead serious on this. I had committed to play Division II soccer at the University of Illinois, Springfield.
I remember that.
And I was literally like the next day getting on a plane to fly to Springfield to sign my contract with them to play soccer. And my freaking letter came in the mail, and my parents went out to the mailbox and got it and brought it in. And I was like, I don't want that. Like, it's too late. Like, I've already committed to play Division II soccer. Like, I'm going to another school. And I opened it and I was like, I got in. I had a 4.0 and I finally got in. And I was like, what do I do? Like, I leave, like, I already have a plane ticket to leave tomorrow. And I ended up having to call the coach from Illinois Springfield, decommit on the phone, tell him like, hey man, like, I've got to go to Texas A&M. Like, I've wanted this since I was like a child. And I was just like, I have to go. And I finally got in. And then, but yeah, like, dude, for whatever reason, they would not accept me. I tried 4 semesters in a row and they wouldn't take me.
I got to tell you, I wouldn't have to call your mom because I remember you called me and or you texted me and you were like, yeah, so I got in, whatever. I'm like, dude, that's a huge deal. You're like, yeah, but I kind of committed to play soccer at the University of Illinois. And I just remember without hesitation, I'm like, Seth, you'll be you've already been surrounded by Baptists in one place. You're about to be surrounded by Yankees at another.
Yeah,
go to the dream school, dude.
Yeah, it would have been terrible.
Yeah, but I was just I got nervous. Like I got nervous that you were gonna follow through with the commitment to go up north. I was like, man, this is his chance. I remember it was like a day or two later because I hadn't heard from you after that. And then I saw you post a picture. You're like, I'm going to A&M. I'm like,
cut that one close. That would have been a whole different trajectory of life. It would have been weird.
Well, I'm glad you did because what?
Sorry, I was going to ask because I know A&M doesn't have a soccer team, but they've got a club team. Did you ever think about playing for the club team?
No. When I went there, I went solely just to go to school because at that point I had already used up like 4 of my 5 years. I had a redshirt year. I'd already used basically all of my NCAA time. I was like, I'm not going to go to play sports. I just want to get my Aggie ring. I want to go and be like a normal student and stuff. And then I got there and I was like, being a normal student is weird. I should try and walk onto the football team. It was just like being a normal person never was my thing. So I was just like, whatever.
And that's what we love about you.
Of all the sports you played, which one did you enjoy the most?
Ooh, none of them. I hated all of them. They all sucked. They're all terrible.
Dude, I have to say, it's like people have this perception that you go to grad school and you don't really treat it like undergrad. Like you only have the college experience once.
Right.
I can say that is false. And I had an Aggie grad school group that you met a few. I remember you came to some of our tailgates and stuff, and it was always a good time. But I specifically remember that you and I still got to hang out, and it was cool because I'm like, dude, the random times are still happening, even though it's like I'm at a new school. Really cool. The most random moment I think ever involving you when we were at A&M was I'm on my way home from work, and you called me. And you're like, dude, you got to get over here. I'm like, I thought something happened. I'm like, what? You're like, Bob's Burgers is coming on in 10 minutes. It's hilarious. You got to watch it. And I'm like, okay. So I detour to your place and we're watching Bob's Burgers for the next 2 hours.
The show is still freaking hilarious.
It was great. Like we watched so much of that. So like one of the things we got to do, now this was actually about a year before either of us even got in, or 2 years. But one of the A&M memories I have before being at A&M was that you and I we didn't know it was the last one, but it ended up being the last one for a while at Darrell K. Royal, the last football game in Austin.
Never.
Cold and freezing.
Freezing cold.
I've told the other guys how that kid ran up and bit you in the arm, was biting like a dog. I mean, it was just like the most ridiculous.
Weird. Yeah. It was Austin. That's the only way you can explain it.
So I have to ask, would you ever go to a game there again?
No.
I think that's my answer too.
That's the worst atmosphere in college football, but I gotta give it credit for this. They got pluckers, man. That's just amazing. Pluckers in football.
Dude, I can literally get on my phone right now and order pluckers and have it delivered to my door.
But can you do it at a college football game? That's what I'm talking about.
If I really wanted to, yeah, probably.
Yeah, they didn't have pluckers when we went, because we went before it was renovated all the way around. I just remember you ordered it was like Pizza Hut, and they gave you the tiniest little pizza in the world.
Yeah.
And we look up from our table, and we're like Seth's wearing a Carhartt. I'm the idiot that thought it was supposed to be warmer, so I'm only wearing a 1-layer long sleeve shirt with the saw-off thing. Mm-hmm. And it was miserable. And I remember there's this loud noise, and we look up. Will Muschamp and Mac Brown are walking through our little like dining court area, and then the team walks by, and we're like, let's go stand in line. So we're at the very front of the line, just like waving at them stupid in our A&M stuff.
I remember that.
I went to a UT Texas Tech game several years ago. And as I was walking out of the game with my father-in-law, we noticed in this like big field, there's a bunch of people like dancing around like that, but there's no sound. I'm like, what is going on? And somebody says it's a silent disco. They all had like headphones on, listening to music in their headphones, dancing to it.
Oh God!
And no like out loud sound in the middle of like broad daylight. It was the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen. It was amazing.
The one benefit or two benefits to that night though is like I have that stadium bucket list. I want to go to every D1 school in Texas at some point. And I was like, well, now's as good a time as ever to knock it out. And the fact that we won, that just made it like, okay, I never need to come back. Like we won, that's it. And singing the war hymn with that crowd through the streets of Austin to get back to our car. And we didn't even know if the car was going to be there.
So
y'all,
good.
we parked at a one parking spot like auto shop in downtown
Yeah, dude,
Austin
that
for
was so
20
sketchy.
bucks.
So sketchy.
So like, what were the key differences in UMHB and A&M? Like, because I mean, they're so night and day different.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, everything that could have been different was like completely different. Lived off campus at both places. Totally different atmosphere at both places. Like, lived in apartments, lived at a house, did the whole nine at A&M. It was just completely different school. The academics on dude, they were so much harder. Like, those classes were stupid hard. Like, the first day of my I had a soils class that the professor walks out and he's like, "Does everybody have their book?" And we're like, yeah, it's right here. And he was like, "My name is," I forgot what his name was, but he was like, "My name is so and so. I wrote the book." And you're like, "Oh crap." He literally wrote the textbook. And I was like, that class, dude, I got a D in it. It was the hardest, like, the highest passing grade was like a 69, I think was the highest passing grade.
Nice.
He rounded everything up. Like, I literally skimmed by. I think I had like a 42 in that class and got by on the bell curve. I was like, oh.
I think I remember that because I remember you were like, dude, there's no mathematical possible way I'm passing this class. And the next week you were like, I passed this class.
Yeah,
the curve.
yeah. That pathology class was terrible. And then the fact that, like, at UMHB, you'd be like, "Oh, I have a class in 30 minutes," and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna stop at the vending machine and get a drink and like hang out with my buddies, and then like maybe leave for class on like 10 minutes before class."
Yeah.
And dude, I would have classes back to back, one on main campus, one on West campus, and it was like, if you didn't have a bike, you weren't getting to class.
No.
Oh, dude, it was terrible. I walked to class every day. I drove and I parked in Reed Arena parking lot, and then I walked to class every day. And I literally did like 10 miles of walking a day because it was like main campus, West campus, main campus, West campus. I'm like, bro, this sucks. I hate this place.
For our UMHB listeners that don't understand that distance, it's like walking from the quad at UMHB to Hardin Simmons. Like,
oh yeah, basically, it's forever long. Like, it was literally, I think from my building on West campus to the building that I was on main, it was by the rugby fields.
Yeah.
It was like a 2.5 mile walk one direction, and they gave us like an hour, 45 minutes, somewhere around there, to get to the class. And I was
had to hightail it. And like,
oh, yeah.
I did all my classes for my master's were online, but I made a specific point to go get involved on campus because I was like, look, if I'm going to pay to have the A&M experience, I'm going to go be an ag. Like, I don't care if I'm surrounded by people several years younger. I'm going to go do it. And the one time I was a counselor for grad camp, so just fish camp for grad students. Right. And dude, it was so funny. Like, we'd have people who got off the plane from France, India, and Pakistan in my group that morning. So it wasn't just their intro to A&M, it was their intro to America. And so we're teaching them Aggie yells and traditions. And I had to stop and be like, folks, I'm just going to tell y'all, if you go to Walmart in any other town, they're not going to be doing this stuff. So maybe don't do this everywhere you go.
This needs to be your entire personality. It needs to be your entire personality for the rest of the time you're in the States.
Dude, our student groups from India, they owned it. Like, they went to every football game. I saw them at Northgate, and like, you were with me sometimes. And they were like,
I met them a few times, and I was like, who are these random Indian people with you? And you're like, these guys are awesome. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, they adapted it. But like, so my worst travel on foot on that campus was the alumni center with the giant Aggie ring. I had to run in boots and jeans because I told my group, watch for the email on advising. It's coming any day. And they all go, we already got it. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't. So I had to run to the Harrington Tower, which is almost to Northgate. And I'm in a full sprint because I have 20 minutes. So I ran, and I am wet and sweat the whole time by the time. And I had to go up to the 4th floor. And so I go in panting. I'm like, I need my glasses. And they're like, calm down. We got you. And then I had to run all the way back. I was like, dude, this campus is too big. But no, Kleberg over on West Campus, that's where my dad's pictures on the wall for the livestock judging team stuff. And like the stereotypical Aggie, that's where they go to class. Right. And I like how, like, you and I, our dads went to A&M. They're, horticulture and agriculture. We're going to own the stereotypes. So like, we would own the look. But like, I remember when you drove the hybrid for a while, and you pulled it into
Yes.
Kleberg. Everyone's kind of like looking like, what's the deal here? Then you
Yeah.
got out and it was like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
he's all right.
That guy. Now it's funny
Uh,
because I was in the building right next to Kleberg. What was it, like Reed or something like that? They literally shared like a pavilion right in the
oh
middle.
yeah. And they got that like restaurant in between the two or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So you were at A&M and then you graduated. I think, did you finish your classes online or did you move and then you came back for graduation? I forget. There was like something at the very end. I think you like
Yeah.
came back.
Yeah. I came back for graduation. I moved. I took a job and then came back.
That's right. Yeah, because I remember I was at
Yeah.
Outfitters, so I could see your parents when they were in town.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
which,
I
by the way,
moved in.
shout out to the Prochaskas. I haven't got to see them in a while, but so this kind of jumps around. But you were still doing CrossFit this whole time, and
Yeah.
at the end of A&M, like you traveled several different states, and like you competed all over the place.
Yeah.
And like, what was your favorite place to go to compete or even live?
Ooh. I think probably the favorite thing that I did competition wise, we went to St. Augustine once in Florida. That was pretty awesome.
Nice.
St. Augustine was really cool. And then probably my favorite place was Provo, Utah. That place was pretty sick. That was when I played grid, the like CrossFit team racing stuff. They flew like all the teams out to Provo, Utah, and like put us up in a hotel and whatnot. And then like we basically were like live-in athletes. Like we just trained and then raced with the team and then went home. It was awesome. But we did that for like 6 weeks. It was pretty cool. So
that place is beautiful too.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Like the weather was great. We were like right at the base of the mountains. So the mountains were always like right there. It was really cool. That was a pretty sweet place to be.
When I was in high school, my dad bought me a book for Christmas called Tales from Aggieland. It was former athletes and coaches who just wrote funny stories from their time at A&M. And one was a track coach, I think, who they had a meet up at BYU, and he was smoking a cigarette, and he was a chain smoker, even though he was a coach for track and field. And these students said they politely told him, because it's BYU, that they politely told him, "Sir, it's a smoke-free campus. You know, I'm sorry, you can't smoke." He's like, "Oh, no problem." But then he started getting withdrawals after a while, and he ran off. He could not find anywhere that there weren't people. So he snuck into some random person's dorm room and slit one up in the closet.
Nice.
And then like left.
Solid.
But yeah, so Nathan would be more knowledgeable of this than me. So there was one thing you did with CrossFit that Nathan did a way better job than me of following. And that was when you were with the Baltimore Anthem. Like,
yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it's like you didn't have to live in the city you represented. You just traveled to the meets. Like, how did that all happen?
So that was the National Pro Grid League. That was basically there was like an online trial. So they put out like 8 tests that we all did and filmed. And basically they would take your scores and they basically generated like a Madden profile, like speed 84. They like generated all that. And then they put you into categories, like you're either a gymnast or a weightlifter or a utility athlete. And then they went through and it had they basically did like an NFL draft. I think there was like 8 or 12 teams or something like that, and they went through a draft, and it was like, hey, these are the people that are eligible to be drafted, these are their statistics, this is what they look like and all that stuff, this is where they live. And they went through an NFL draft type thing and were like, okay, first round, first pick, who are you going to take? And then they started just picking off athletes. And then I got picked. I was the first pick of the 3rd round as a utility player for the Baltimore Anthem. And I signed a professional contract. I still have it. It's all written out and stuff. And we got paid a stipend to go and play. So I was like a signed professional athlete. And they flew us out, I think 2 or 3 times out to Baltimore. And we trained and learned each other as a team and whatnot. And then they flew all the teams to Provo, Utah, and then we did the grid league. And that was the one day that I like ended up on ESPN on a race. And you're like, did I just see you on ESPN?
Yeah.
It's like
Nathan sent it to me. He's like, is this Seth? And he sent it to me. I'm like, yeah.
Dude, it was awesome. I was like, man, I made it on ESPN in 3 different sports. How cool is that?
That's actually a great, that should be, if there's ever a trivia contest about guests from this podcast, we got one who was on ESPN 3 times. Well, I think Tyler and I have been in a crowd shot, but we definitely were not competing. We were getting told by a certain someone to sit down and be quiet at football games.
God.
So totally lost my place on my little rundown here, but and my voice is getting higher and higher as we go.
I'll ask you this. So
Yes.
What is your advice to other aging widening people on how they improve themselves and slow that down, because certain people, I don't know who they are, they might still want to go do their sports, but they find out real quick that when they go do the stuff that you do, they can't quite do it that way anymore.
Well, I would like to let you know at the age of, what year is it? I'm 33 now. At 33, I would absolutely demolish myself at 18 or 19. I would put myself in place. Oh yeah, 100%. D1 athlete coming out of high school, like going to play D1 sports, I would absolutely trash myself at 33. Like, I am way better. I would say probably my biggest, I would tell everybody is the world that we live in right now is so like instant gratification. Like, I can get on my phone and be like, hey Siri, how much whatever do I need? And it'll literally tell me like instantly and it's done. In the world of fitness and like losing weight, gaining muscle, running a 5K, whatever your goal is, instant gratification is not going to happen because it took you 33 years to get to the shape you're in right now. If you start eating properly and training properly and whatnot, it's going to take you a while to be able to negate 10 years of eating like crap. It's not going to happen overnight. So I would say that's probably like the biggest thing, is because like even for me, I still get in like very self-conscious of like how I look. And I'm like, man, I feel like crap. Like, I don't have a 6-pack right now. Like, oh dude, I feel like trash. Then I'm like, I've been eating like an idiot for a month. And then I'm like, okay, and I'll get back on it, and then I'll start eating the right way. And it's like, it takes about a month to work off the damage that I did. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I feel better now. But that's probably like my biggest thing that I would tell anybody is like, don't expect anything to change without constant repetition of the same good process, right? Like, you can eat perfect lifestyle. Yeah. It's like, you can't eat great for a week and expect to like look like you're 18 again. Yeah. It's not going to happen. Like, it takes years of eating properly to like start actually seeing big transformations. So
apparently I look 19 at the beach.
What would you say is more important, nutrition or working out?
Nutrition. 100%. 100%. You can't outwork a bad diet. Like, if you put, the way I explain it to all my high school kids that I work out with is like, hey man, you're a Ferrari. You're the best fine-tuned athlete that you can be. Ferraris don't take regular unleaded gasoline. You can't put the wrong gas in a Ferrari engine. It's not going to run. Like, you have to put jet fuel in. If you're not putting the right fuel in, the car's never going to run. It's just not possible. Yeah. So, I mean, you can train and do everything exactly right. But if you're eating too much or too little, or you're not doing exactly what you need to do with your food, it doesn't matter. I mean, look at me. I train freaking madman 6 out of the 7 days of the week. If I eat wrong, I still get out of shape and like get pudgy and hold on to water. And I'm like, oh God, I am killing myself in the gym and I still don't feel like I look like I should. Well, you're eating like an idiot. Stop doing that.
It's funny you mentioned that, because about 3 days before it wasn't even a New Year's resolution. It's just something I wanted to do. So about three days before the new year started, I came up with a diet I was going to do and an exercise routine, like a workout I was going to do. I was like, all right, I knew I had a show scheduled at the beach in March. I was like, I want to look good. I not because I'm trying to impress anybody, but I just want to impress myself. I want to go down and feel good about how I look. So I went on a diet that was nothing but grilled chicken or extremely lean unprocessed meat, vegetables, fruit. I would have corn checks for breakfast. That was the only like non-fruit or vegetable or lean meat I had. And then I would drink coffee, but I would drink a gallon of water a day to stay hydrated with it, which I never realized how hard that was till I started doing it. Yeah. And the problem was I traveled over the holidays and I got back, then I got sick. So I kept doing the diet, but I didn't have the workout to go with it. Yeah. And so I'm like 4 weeks into this thing. From when Charlotte was born in summer, I lost like 15 to 20 pounds for no reason, just in 2 weeks at the hospital. I don't know why. And so I was like, well, let's keep this going, but get in shape with it. Dude, I was 208 when Charlotte was born last June. I'm like 169 now. And so I've lost that much weight, but I didn't have the muscle build to go with it. So I had gone to Boot Barn and bought slim fit jeans that were like tight, and I looked scrawny. I'm like, man, dude, they were falling off of me by the time I went to the coast. I was like, well, this failed miserably because I did not do the workout to go with it. So for about 2 weeks, I've just eaten whatever I wanted because I was like, I can't work out well with my throat anyway. And I was on the road. I'm just going to enjoy, gain a little bit of weight back and then work out. But man, I definitely did not do that in balance. And I lost way more weight than I needed to.
Oops.
But, you were talking about like advice that you give to others. So I follow your Instagram, and a lot of it's for the memes because we keep each other entertained. But we will meme our way through World War III. But I see that you go to football games for some of these young athletes. You mentor them at local. You've been a part of like their athletic journey. What does it mean to you to get to mentor people to stay in shape and find their path?
I mean, for those guys, it's freaking awesome. Because I was there. I know way more now than I did when I was 18. Like, if I would have known all the stuff I know now, or had somebody that was like in my position when I was a high school athlete, oh God, I would have gone pro in any sport. Like, I would have been so much better off. All of my guys now, I try and do that for them, is like, hey, I've been there. I was a super ranked athlete in multiple sports. I played multiple sports in college. I know what it takes to get there. And now, coupled with, we have a really good nutrition plan. I can tell you how to work out for whatever you want to do. Like, if you want to go and play football, cool, we'll do football. You want to play baseball, whatever. I have a tennis player. Like, I've done any sport. But like, I tell all those guys that I build them off the same way, is like, hey, you're going to be really, really strong and you're going to dominate whoever you play. And basically my entire goal is to not only make them like super physically strong and make them just units of athletes on the field, but like, I want to build their confidence so much, because I've dealt with so much non-confidence in myself. Like, I've had so many issues, mental issues, where it was like, dude, I don't know if I can do this because I don't believe in myself enough. But like, with all my guys, I tell them the same thing. I'm like, you're the best athlete on the field. You've got to walk out on the field and be like, I'm the best here. There's nobody that's going to touch me. And I hype them up so much that when they get on the field, they like expect to win. Like, my guys, when they went and played Austin Westlake, they were like, we're about to whoop the shit out of these guys. I was like, yeah, you are. It was awesome. And even though they lost, they went out and they played the number one team in the nation in high school football and put on a freaking show. Yeah. Like, it was like, man, that's all I could ask for. And then I think I had all of my guys this past year, except for one, have committed to play football. So I have, coming this next fall when football starts in college, I'll have 8 college athletes that are playing all around the United States. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I keep seeing you posting like, congratulations, I'm proud of you, to like another guy, like every couple of weeks. I'm like, it's like DJ Khaled. It's like another one.
Another one. So,
well, you mentioned like the confidence it takes to be an athlete. That definitely spills over into like daily life, like mental health and confidence, and being able to tackle life issues when you're in a better physical. Yeah. I take that because like, I've watched it with you. I know that I'm in a better mental state when I'm trying to get in better shape. Yeah. And the reason I play bass guitar, I read Duff McKagan's book. Duff McKagan was one of the most bloated doughboys of the 80s when he was in Guns N' Roses. Now he's a kickboxer and a pro athlete, and he's back in Guns N' Roses, and he could beat up his younger self, And I read his book, and it said, when you're depressed, first thing you want to do is lay down or take a nap. Don't go out and run. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to run. I'll meet you halfway and work out. Like, that's what I'll do that. Like, how much truth is there to that? Like, what would you say? Would you say that's pretty fair?
At a base level of chemistry in your brain, 100% true. Because when you start working out, you start getting adrenaline, you start getting endorphins, your body starts functioning the way it's supposed to be. Because like, the human body is not meant to be sedentary. Given I'm a couch potato, and like, when I get off of work and after I work out and everything, I come home and sit down and watch anime for like 4 hours. And I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. But like, you're not meant to be that way all the time. Like your body's meant to move. It's meant to do stuff. So like naturally just getting up and like picking up something heavy a couple of times, you're going to be like, oh, I actually feel kind of good. It's because your body releases all kinds of endorphins that help your brain. And it makes it feel better. So I think that's 100% true.
Dude, I at first, when you start posting the anime stuff, I'm like, Seth's not a weeb. I don't get this. You know, where's the anime? And I thought about, I'm like, bunch of dudes who unleash energy to beat each other up. Yeah, this makes sense.
100%. Dude, if I could be a Super Saiyan, I would 100%.
I wouldn't fight you. So what are your future athletic goals for you? Because like to me, yeah, I say this, age is just a number. I do think it's harder to work out in my 30s, but at the same time, I sit there and I psych myself out like, dude, if you can go out and play music shows and try to act like you're 20 for an hour on stage, you can act like you're 20 for an hour under a weight bench. Like, what's your goals for the future? I mean, Tony Horton's like 60 and he still kicks my butt. Like,
yeah, he's awesome. No, I think right now, like all I want to do is I'm gonna keep competing in CrossFit. The CrossFit Open and the quarterfinals just finished.
nice.
I finished like I think there was something like 39,000 people or guys 18 to 35 that competed in the CrossFit Open. I think I ended like 1700th, somewhere in there. So I was in the top 2,000 in the world at 33, which is the top of the age group. I'm still fighting against like 19-year-olds.
That's awesome.
So I was still in the top 2,000. And then after the quarterfinals, I was like 100 and something or 200 and something in America West. So basically from like Mexico up to Canada, from like the Mississippi River all the way to California. Out of all of those athletes, I was like in the top 200. So I'm 35 is the age group cutoff. So you do like 18 to 34, and then once you turn 35, you go 35 to 40 competes against you, and then 40 to 45, 45 to 50. So I'll be like the young guy in the 35-year-old group in 2 years. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I'm hitting 35 next month.
Oof. Ask me to 40, baby.
Yeah. Hey, I'm on the Betty White and John Stamos track, dude. Like age is just a number.
Heck yeah, man. I'm right there with you.
Dude, that's I don't know, but talking to the two of you when the word Mississippi comes out of somebody's mouth, I'm like, I'm not gonna go down that road.
That was a long way.
Oh, yeah. Something you have to kind of be athletic for to be really good at what you do is law enforcement. And like I mentioned earlier, the terrifying job reference call I got because I didn't realize it was a job reference that one time. You've been in a few positions, and if I'm not mistaken, you've kind of climbed the ladder a bit.
Yeah, a bit.
At least they slap more armor on you, it looks like, every time you have a new job. Yeah. So one of my questions, and I just now thought of this one, it was not on my list, but a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was being pepper sprayed for the first time?
Dude, no, worst pain. Like I would take re-tearing my knee and going through surgery again than getting OC'd ever again. Worst experience of my life. Hands down.
He'd re-enroll in UMHB before doing that.
Oh, dude, 100%. Dude, okay, so like in the academy, you got peppered sprayed, and it was like, I mean, it sucked. You're like, oh god, pepper, and you did the thing, and basically what they use for like testing on pepper spray is inert or like old pepper spray. So like when it goes, if you haven't used your canister and it's gone expired, they'll use that as testing, so they're not buying stuff to test with. So usually you can get away with like, it's hot, but it's not like, holy crap, my face is melting.
Yeah.
When I was with New Braunfels PD, the first girl, because I drew the short stick and got number 2 in line. So like the first girl went and then I went second. The first girl, they went up and they shook the thing and they're like, oh, OC, and they sprayed her in the face and it was white. So it was all inert. It was just like full. And she was like, oh, it's hot, but no red came out. Like it was completely like nothing. She was fine in like 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay, whatever. And they were like, one of the guys that I know that used to be a weightlifting coach for my wife, he was the sergeant on the SWAT team. And he's standing there and he was like, you know, everybody shows up to watch the new guys get sprayed. And he walks over, he's like, no, we're not using that can. He pulls his personal can off his belt. And they're like, And they allow you to cover like one eye, and they just like and spray me with this. Dude, I thought I was going to die. It was the hottest, like snot and blood, and I was like, oh God. And it's not just like, hey, we're gonna pepper spray you and that's it. It's like, hey, we're gonna pepper spray you, then make you run an obstacle course, and then you have to beat up a dummy and then give commands to a guy and then handcuff them and then take a pistol away from them. And like, it's not just like you get sprayed and then you get to walk it off and it's fine. No, they make you do stuff after. And you're just like the entire time, you're like, oh, my face. It was terrible, dude. Worst experience of my life.
My eyes started burning.
0 out of 10, do not recommend. Like if you ever get in a situation and you hear a police officer, and this is for everybody, for you and Tyler, or for anybody that ever watches or listens to this, if you hear a police officer say, if you don't get back, I'm going to OC you, run. Stop what you're doing, get away. Worst thing ever.
Well, I have been eager for the day that I get pulled over and Seth Prochaska walks up to me. I'm just so sad.
Oh, dude, I'm tasing you for sure.
I've been waiting.
Stop resisting. I will write a use of force form just for that. It'll be fine. It's like a slap on the wrist. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll take it. Whatever, you know.
Tyler's gonna be on the ground like thin blue line. I support the
Stop resisting.
So like, what drew you to law enforcement in the first place?
Fun story. Nothing. I had no desire to be in law enforcement at all. Zero. Like I was like, oh, cool. SWAT would be kind of cool. But like any kind of like 20-ish-year-old guy is like, oh, guns and kicking in the door with bad people doing that. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Like that's pretty normal. Like
the Beavis and Butthead where they made them honorary ATF officers.
Yeah.
Like, alcohol and firearms. Cool.
Yeah. Like that's pretty normal. Like, oh, cool. Guns and like doing fun stuff. That was about my extent of law enforcement knowledge. My wife, on the other hand, grew up in a law enforcement family. Her mother works in the jail here in our county. She's been there for like 25 plus years, has been there forever. Her father-in-law was like a 25 plus year sheriff's deputy in this county. They were actually the ones that were like, hey, you're kind of mean and you're kind of an asshole and you kind of have the personality. Have you ever thought about doing law enforcement? And I was like, no, I haven't. And they were like, you should definitely think about it. And then I got into corrections. So I worked in the jail to start off. And the reason I worked in the jail was they basically were like, hey, we have a BPOC, which is basic peace officer's license. After you have been in the jail for long enough, we pay for you to do it. And then we promote you from the jail to go to the street and then you become an officer. And I was like, okay, cool. So I started doing the jail and basically worked with the same people that I work with now, as far as criminals go. But they were in a contained area where it was like everybody I was talking to was like a bad person. Or they had done something bad, not necessarily like a bad person, but they did something wrong and they were in jail. So I got to learn like how to talk to people, like how certain groups of people that did certain things, how they react to like white guys. I learned my tattoos gave me some kind of street cred because they were like, oh, you got tattoos. And I'm like, yeah. And then they would be like, you have knuckle tattoos? Freaking sweet. I was like, thanks. Cool. So, but yeah, so I went from the jail and then I got hired on with New Braunfels. They put me through the academy. I went through the academy with New Braunfels. I did a little tour with them. And then stepped away from law enforcement completely for like a year and a half. And that's when we opened the gym here and that my wife runs. And then I got about
real quick. Sorry, didn't Local win an award or it was close to winning an award? It was something last year. Gym.
So for the past 2 years, for the past 2 years, we've been nominated as one of the top 3 gyms in New Braunfels. And then the past 2 years, we've been nominated for, I think this past year, we got second for best personal trainers in New Braunfels. So, and that's Jesse and I both got nominated like on the same list. So yeah, pretty cool. And then, but yeah, I got to the end of like a year and a half away from New Braunfels, and I was like, okay, well, I probably should like make a career or something because I'm 31. And I was like, I've never really had a job my entire life. I've always just kind of been like an athlete and haven't really ever done anything. I should probably like get an adult job. And then basic peace officer license. If you go 2 years without completing a certain amount of training in those 2 years, your license in the state of Texas will expire and you have to go through the academy again. And I was like, ooh, I should probably like get a job with that so it doesn't expire. And then I randomly was like all kinds of trying to get a job, and then ended up getting a job down in Edna, down in my hometown. And I worked there for about 9-10 months, and then got the position here back in Comal County, and came back here. And now, so it was like,
So, you're not working down in Edna. You're like back in New Braunfels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can taste Tyler then, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. No, like
Wait.
I work in Precinct 4, which is the north side of the lake, by Canyon Lake, all the way down to New Braunfels. So
that's literally where I grew up, baby.
I know.
Now Tyler's gonna be calling in tips
down on the south side.
Oh, well, it's funny because the lake that he was talking about earlier that he goes out on, I work for so the position that I actually hold is I'm a deputy constable in Precinct 4, and I work the WORD contract, and WORD is the Water Oriented Recreations Department.
Nice.
They own the parks at the lake. So I actually am like quote unquote park police. Oh, wow. Throughout the entire summer in Canyon Park on the north side of the lake. And Friday, Saturday, Sundays, I work in Canyon Lake, on the lake, the entire summer.
Legit.
So
you see any crazy redneck water drunken madness out there?
Not yet, because it's still early in the year, but
you will, trust me.
It's a cold March too.
Oh yeah. So it's only a matter of time.
Tyler's been shot at in Canyon Lake, you know.
Well, technically that was Blanco where I got shot at, but close enough.
Yeah, same thing.
I'm just sitting here loving this because I've got the peace officer and the former one-day convict who knew why the colors of the wall were the way they are, telling me all sorts of info I need to know.
Yeah.
Shout out Bell County.
Shout out. Oh man, I love it. Well, like the only other question I had on law enforcement is just what do you enjoy the most about it?
Man, I guess like the fact that I'm not stationary. Like there's like, especially for like the constable's office. Constable's office is fantastic. It's a great job. It's a great career because it's like, I'm basically under the jurisdiction of the court. So we handle civil process. So basically anything that's handed down from the court. So like if the judge, if you try and sue Tyler, and then the judge is like, hey, Garrett, you've won your suit and we're filing suit against Tyler. The only constitutionally written peace officers in the state of Texas are constables. So we're the only ones that are allowed to deliver that paper to Tyler that says you're being served by the plaintiff for this amount of money. You have court on this day. We're the only ones that are we're the only ones that are allowed to touch that paperwork. And then like we do evictions, we do like writs of possession. So basically like if a lien holder decides that you're not paying enough money on your trailer house and they've gone through all the process and it comes to the point where it's time to take the trailer house back, that's where I come in, and we go and forceful entry, forceful exit. We are taking this one way or another, whether you like it or not. So it's really cool because our job is it could be like super chill. Like last Friday, I sat in the office the entire day and just fielded random questions that came in. The next day, I made like 20 traffic stops.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's like you could do all the work in the world. You can do no work. You can serve papers. We have court every Monday, and I do court security. Like it's awesome because it's never the same thing twice. It's always something different. And especially with the constable's office, you can work as much or as less as you want to, as long as you get your minimum requirement of stuff done. So as long as I'm doing my job and I make sure my constable's taken care of and my judge is taken care of, I can go I can run traffic and look for drugs all day long if I want to. And as long as they're taken care of and my job's complete, I can do whatever I want. So it's really cool because I get the freedom to be able to do whatever I want basically all day.
It sounds to me like for as long as I've known you, I would picture, okay, a job where you're not doing the same thing every day, you're mobile, there's still physical activity involved where it's one more reason to stay in shape, and you're in an area where you can be outdoors in a place like the hill country. To me, that just sounds like the ideal thing for you. Like I can't picture you in a cubicle. I'll put it that way.
No, dude. Yeah. I feel like that's super, like, being awfully jacked for no reason. Like, oh, thanks for calling, Dell. How are you? Like, that doesn't fit me at all. Like, that would be terrible. Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know, being law enforcement now, working for the constable's office is a little bit different because I haven't had any like real bad things because we're not necessarily like a first line law enforcement anymore. So I don't feel calls at all. So like I can help. I still have the ability to like do calls. Like if there's like a shooting in progress, I can still show up. I still have that authority as a law enforcement officer, but I'm not the one that, like, if you call the sheriff's office right now and you're like, oh my God, somebody's breaking into my house, I'm not going. Like, that's not me. I handle civil process and that's it. Since I left Edna, where I was municipal PD, I was a city cop. That was the last time that I actually really had some, like, we were fielding calls and had bad stuff happen. And I had some stuff down there that was pretty like, oh, well, at least I know how I'm going to react if that ever happens in real life. Cool. So
it's good that you're prepared and you know that stuff if you have to deal with it. Because, like, you know, you see on the news and people politicize a lot of it, but it's like there's a lot of guys that enter the field that aren't ready for it and probably don't need to be in it. And they're the ones that give all of you, you know, at times the negative attention to the media. And it's just like, it's like, I'm glad that, you know, like if you had to come answer a call at my place, or you've got, you know, like, I don't know if y'all still, everybody froze for a second. Okay, good. Like, you know, you have like, after when Uvalde happened, there was a lot of scrutiny and stuff on because of the way they handled it down there. I'm comfortable knowing, like, if my kid was in a school and something was going down, you're not the type of guy who's going to do it the way they did it. You're the guy that's going to, no, we're going to do this the right way. So like,
and
we need more Seths out there.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't say that. That'd be terrible. I mean, dude, like, I would say it comes down a lot to like age and maturity too. Yeah. Because a lot of the guys that you're seeing, like, I got out of the academy in 20, so I was 30 years old. Like, I had just turned 30. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I was still like super scared as a police officer. I was like, I don't know if I want to make a traffic stop because that guy might shoot me. Like, it was one of those things where it was like I was too timid to like be able to do my job correctly. Now at 33, like, I'm not that much older, but I have way more life experience, way more experience dealing with people. Like, I'm not scared to walk up and talk to you. Like, I'll stand there and talk to you all day. But like, we had, like, when I was at Edna, I had an active shooter one night at like 2:00 in the morning, right before I got off of work, and pouring rain. And we're standing out there in full battle, full plates with my rifle out. And we made entry into a house with an active shooter. Like, and at that point in time, like, if I would have done that when I was 30, it would have been bad. It would have been a bad situation because mentally I wasn't prepared to be able to do that. At 33, I went in with 2 other guys and we were like, we're going to handle business whether we have to do it this way or not. And I think it was just more life experience, more preparedness. Like, I felt like I could handle it. And like, I have no lasting repercussions of going into there and doing what we had to do. And like, I feel comfortable with myself being like, that's my job. I have to do it. And we're going to do it this way. So I think a lot of the guys that you see that are really young that do dumb things, I think it's just life experience. Like, they're not ready. They're not prepared or set up in a way to be good at their job yet. Like, they're still like, they don't know how to use force. And they're just like, we have to control the situation right now. And they don't understand that it's like, slow down, Turbo. Like, you're good, man. Like, you've got it under control. You can chill. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, once you get the dude in cuffs, it's over. Like, that's it. There's no, like, you sit him up, you put him in the car and he's fine. Like, leave him there. Like, that's it. Once the cuffs go on, that's it. And a lot of the guys that you see that get in trouble, that do dumb things, it's because they don't know when to stop, or they get into that position and they're so jacked up that they can't stop.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, luckily, with me being in sports, with being super competitive in everything that I do, and having that high adrenaline so many times in my life, I can shut it off like that. Like, I know when it's like, it's done. I don't have to do anything else. So
that's true. I've seen you go from like 100 miles an hour to zero. And I mean, you sedate, like you sit there, you may have to leave the room, but man, I've seen you just like, you hone it in fast.
And I think that's a thing that a lot of the guys that you see that get in trouble, especially in law enforcement, they don't have that. Like they can't shut it off, and they get in trouble because not necessarily because they're doing anything wrong, not because they're doing something wrong at the time, because if you're still fighting for your life, nothing's out of the, like, you do what you have to do. But once it's secured, and once the dude's in cuffs, or once the situation is settled, it needs to stop, and it needs to stop right now. There's no, they can't go any further, and they don't know how to shut it off, and they keep going further. And then it's like, oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to back you because you got yourself into this, man. Like, you should shut it off. Like, that's
on your own now.
Yeah. It's like, that's one of those ones where you just like, kind of like, ooh. And luckily for me, I've never been put in a situation like that. Like, all the guys that I've ever worked with or been around have been really professional, have been really great with people. Like, I can honestly say, in the entire time I've been in law enforcement, I've never seen one thing happen with anybody I've ever been around, at any agency I've ever been around, that's been shady. I like, not one. But some of the stuff that I see, like, from other states and stuff, and I'm like, I would be the dude that would be like, yeah, bro, that's bad. Like, we should report that to somebody. Like, don't do that, man. And it kills us, because it's like, you'll see stuff from like wherever, New York, and then people down here in Texas are like, oh my God, are you going to shoot me? And I'm like, no, like, I don't have a reason to. What are you talking about, man? It's a traffic stop. Like, you were driving 70 in a 55. I was just going to give you a warning, but okay. Yeah.
And those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those up.
dude, you'd be surprised. Ask Tyler, coming into New Braunfels on 306. It's a 55 from Canyon Lake all the way to the edge of New Braunfels. At the edge of New Braunfels, it turns into a 50-mile-an-hour zone. You'll get people doing like 75 in the 50, and they're just like flying by. And I'm just sitting there with my radar, like, bro.
Here's the thing, and I think this comes from it used to be a little bit more small town than it is now. Oh, yeah. Growing up, in all of these back roads were all like 55 miles an hour. Nobody drove close to that. 80, 85. I mean, I'd get past going 75 miles an hour by big old like trucks coming around the corner.
Yeah.
And I think they're getting maybe stricter on that, especially coming into town.
Probably anybody that's been in San Marcos all day, they've got pent up rage from the amount of construction stop and go down there. I was at an appraisal conference about a month or so ago, and dude, San Marcos is worse than Waco right now. Like, the construction down there is bad.
Terrible. 35 is nasty. It's about to get even worse here in New Braunfels, because they're going to build like a 2-tier overpass. Like, you know how Austin has like the upper level? They're supposed to be doing that here in from San Antonio all the way to Austin. And I was like, I don't want any part of that.
Anybody who still thinks New Braunfels is small is not going to think it much longer.
No, not at all.
No, in Temple, it's weird. Like, they're starting to label in certain businesses, they're labeling Temple now the northernmost suburb of Austin. And that freaks Salado people out, because I'm like, we laugh, but I'm like, we are getting a lot more commuters. Like, Temple has exploded over the last 2 years because of the people that are willing to drive an hour and a half into Austin. And because, it's expensive to live here, but it's still cheaper than Austin. So and then Waco, thanks to Chip and Joanna and Baylor, like, that place is blowing up. So like, we're in the middle of all the commuters right now. And they're saying New Braunfels to south of Fort Worth is the fastest growing stretch of residences in the United States. And we're catching the hottest part of that iron right here in
Comal
Temple.
County. Comal County for like the past like 3 or 4 years has been the fastest growing county in the United States.
Yeah.
Like,
Can
it's
you
stupid.
imagine if Las Vegas hadn't come through in the 11th hour with that offer on the NFL when they were buying the land out there to do that? Can you imagine an NFL team in New Braunfels right now?
Oh,
I
dude.
do. Every time they talk about that New Braunfels, San Marcos area getting like some team, I'm like, stop, don't. It's just that's not who we are. But
No.
It's a tease anyway. It's always a bargaining chip.
I drive around now and I just can't help but think of the Randy Rogers song. They call it the hill
yeah.
country. Well, what do they call it when it's leveled and paved? Well, we best figure it out because we're there.
Yeah, it's true.
Finally met that guy last year, but it was like in passing, and he was having a conversation. I think I annoyed him by saying hi. But
speaking of another New Braunfels local,
yeah, dude. Speaking of musicians, Tyler, you won't even catch this, or you'll roll your eyes if you do know who I'm talking about. But Seth, I met one of the Moonshine Bandits a couple months ago. Yeah, when I say met him, I went to their concert, and when I was walking to my truck, one of them was like decompressing out by his van. I didn't want to annoy him. It was Bird, and I happened to see him, and I was like, "Killer show, man! It was great." He turned and he looked up, and he's like, "Appreciate you, brother." They talk. So I was like, I'm gonna count it. I met one of them. Hopefully that happens again.
Check it off the list.
And then I heard from Timberwolf. So shout out to Timberwolf Tone the other day. He just put out a music video, and like we actually messaged about it. So I've gotten to talk to him and Dalton DeRich, and Dalton is friends with Dusty Lee and Justin Champagne. So we've talked about maybe trying to put some sort of show like that, which
that'd be cool.
You'll be the first person I call if we make that happen. It's definitely it's different from my norm, but
yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
It'd be dope. Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions. I don't know if Tyler does or not, but I just guess this means a lot to me because like group text, social outings, like podcast type things, it's not your jam. And like,
no, not at all.
When you texted me right back and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, for real? So I'm very appreciative that you took the time to do this, man.
Of course, man.
Even though I've said this for about 2 or 3 years, I actually mean it. And like, let's set a tentative like goal for July or August. I'm going to come down to New Braunfels and we're going to work out together. I need about a 2-month head start, but so I don't die again, but we're going to make that happen pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, middle of the week is probably the best because with my work schedule. So I work every weekend until like September.
Cool.
So that was part of the thing that I gave up for working at the park, but I'll have like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off every week from like May until September.
Nice.
So I get 3 days off a week every week. So whenever.
Cool.
I'm good. Just let me know.
We'll make it happen.
Heck yeah, dude.
Awesome.
Sweet. Good seeing you. I'll see you in 5 years.
Yeah, take it easy, man.
All right. Yeah, I'll send this to you when it's up and running.
Heck yeah, dude. Right. I'll be here. You know where I'm at. I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Tyler, do you have an outro or are you set?
Oh, I didn't know. I don't. Nope, I don't have an outro.
Well, in that case, it's 9:45 in HSU.
Still sucks.
All right.
True.
Catch you boys later.